Good morning, everybody. I'm really excited to see all of you here, and I'm not just saying that. It's Friday after a long week of Ignite, a long, amazing week, and I was a little worried last night. I was thinking about showing up today and there'd be no one in the room, and so I'm really happy to see all of you here. Thanks for being here. We'll reward you with a really great session today. My name is Schapiro. I lead partner strategy and go-to-market for Microsoft's worldwide energy and resources team. And I'm really excited to be joined today by a couple of our partners. And we're going to hear from S&P Global and from 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗸𝗁 today during the session. And I think you'll learn a lot about how these companies and partners of Microsoft are using agentic AI to transform the energy and resources business. In the tech world, we talk a lot about technology adoption and technology adoption curves. And what we mean by that is how long it takes for a certain technology to reach a certain number of users. And so as an example, I want to talk about a few different types of technology and how long it took them to reach 100 million users, starting with the cell phone. So the cell phone that we have attached to us every moment of every day, believe it or not, it took 16 years for that technology to reach 100 million users. And I actually was one of the laggards, probably at the late end of that. I really didn't want to get a cell phone. And I actually coincidentally lived here in San Francisco back during the dot-com boom, and it was very competitive to get an apartment, to rent an apartment, and the only way you could get one is if you had a cell phone to answer when they called you, and so I had to give in and buy that little flip phone so I could get an apartment. But 16 years for the cell phone. The internet came along, and it's kind of surprising now that it took as long as it did, but 7 years it took for the internet to reach 100 million users. And then one of the technologies that came after that sort of linked us all together was Facebook. Facebook took 4.5 years to reach 100 million users. So these are adoption curves. So what's different now? Well, with AI, we've started to see something really, really amazing. And the first AI tool that really got out to the masses, of course, was ChatGPT. Anyone have an idea of how long it took for ChatGPT to reach 100 million users? 2 months is correct. So we've gone from adoption curves to an adoption straight line. And I bring this up because if we're not adapting quickly in this new era as companies, as people, we are going to be left behind. And one of the ways that we can stay ahead of the curve as these technologies move as quickly as they are doing is by working with others, working with partners. And partnership is super, super important to Microsoft. It's super important to all of you, I know. And that's why we've got these great partners here to help us today. The other thing that we've been talking a lot about this week, honestly, if I hear the word agent one more time, I think I'm going to explode. But the other thing besides agents and related to agents is frontier. So we've been talking a lot about frontier firms. And the phrase frontier firm came out of something called the Work Trends Index, which is a report Microsoft does every year. This year we did surveys of 31,000 people across 31 different countries. We looked at trillions of pieces of data from our productivity suite. We looked at LinkedIn. We talked to experts. And what came out of that was the emergence of this new kind of firm that we were seeing called the frontier firm. And the frontier firm is one that's embracing AI, and not just AI, but agentic AI in particular. So they're starting to leverage the agents that we all heard so much about, and teams of agents and that sort of thing. And so there's obviously a lot of excitement about frontier firms. And so bringing it to the energy and resources industry that we're here to talk about, we're seeing a number of companies that we would call frontier firms that are moving in that direction. Companies like Chevron, 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗶𝗀𝗀𝗀, Petronas that you see on the page here. And what they're doing is using AI and agentic AI to transform their business processes. So they're not just using it as a chat engine or to interact via chat, but they're using it in the business line, in the industrial settings, and it's really changing the way they do business, which is super exciting for us. I want to show you a great example of agentic AI and how it's being used through one of our partners, 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗁. And so before I bring out our guest, I want to show a video from 𝗦𝗽𝗁 that's going to show you a little bit about what they're doing with field workers in the utility sector and how agentic AI can help them. So I'll go ahead and play the video.
AI Field Assist helps field crews by integrating with their usual mobile work order. Instead of replacing the existing app, Field Assist works alongside it, automatically collecting safety alerts, weather updates, job suggestions, live status, knowledge-based details, nearby resources, and insights from various systems. The Field Assist Insights tab displays these details on easy-to-read cards, such as job procedures, safety notes, and AI recommendations, saving crews time and offering the information they need up front, like having a knowledgeable coworker always ready to help. When the crew wants to go deeper, they switch to the Chat tab. Here, they can type a question or simply talk to Field Assist, either by tapping the Audio Assist button or by using its wake word, Alex.
Alex, what is the minimum approach distance for 15 kV equipment?
For 15 kV equipment, the minimum approach distance is 2 feet 1 inch. You must wear Class 2 ARC-rated clothing and use insulated tools for all contact. Always verify de-energized state before approaching.
Next, the worker takes a photo of the damaged fuse. Field Assist analyzes the image, confirming it's a Type K fuse, matching it to the correct part number, and flagging that the damage pattern suggests moderate corrosion. It even adds a tip: recommend cleaning corrosion at next maintenance cycle. What used to rely on experience or guesswork is now consistent, data-driven insight right at the pole. Before work begins, Field Assist automatically runs a quick safety scan. It cross-checks GIS and switching data and detects that a nearby secondary line is still energized. Confirm line de-energized before proceeding. A second alert appears. High wind advisory in effect, restrict bucket operation above 30 feet. Field Assist pulls that straight from local weather feeds. And for energized work, it would remind the crew. Rubber gloves or hot sticks required for this operation confirm PPE compliance. Each alert is tailored to the job and location, reinforcing safety culture without slowing the crew down. After the repair, Field Assist takes care of the documentation automatically. It pulls together voice notes, photos, and data from the work order to create a completion summary ready for review and upload. No retyping, no double entry. What used to take 15 minutes of admin time now happens in seconds. AI Field Assist doesn't replace your existing mobile system, it enhances it. It listens, observes, and learns from every job to make the next one safer, faster, and easier. For utilities, that means faster restoration, fewer errors, and a workforce that's empowered by information not buried in it. AI Field Assist, powered by 𝗦𝗽𝗀𝗃 and Microsoft, guiding every step of the way.
Please join me in welcoming to the stage 𝗦𝗽𝗃's SVP of Industry Growth and Partnerships, Mike Rossi. Hey, Mike. Thanks for being here. I love that demo. I love that tool. And actually, the first time I saw it was in Houston a few months ago. We had a customer event together, and I saw a live demo of this. It's not just a video. It's real. It's in effect and in production. And to me, it's one of the best examples of agentic AI in an industrial setting, and it applies way beyond just the power and utility sector. This could be used in any fieldwork application. So super exciting, and that's the kind of thing that helps a partner become Partner of the Year. And I'm really excited that 𝗦𝗽𝗃 has been honored with Microsoft's Partner of the Year for Energy and Resources this year. Super exciting, and it's great work like this that's led to that. So. Wanted to hear more about your team and what your team's charter is, what your mission is. Tell us a little bit more about 𝗦𝗽𝗃.
Yeah, you got it. And Rob, thanks so much for your support. I mean, the entire alignment that we have with Microsoft is just a very special partnership. So thank you for that, and thank you for the kind award. I think it's a testament to all the amazing work that our teams do every single day to better understand what the frontier energy firm is going to look like. And I think, a lot of that is still being worked through, but the applications like what you saw on the screen today is really transforming workflows and changing the work for the better in a safe and productive way. So really excited for that. So Mike Rossi, SVP of Industry and Growth. So 𝗦𝗽𝗃 is part of IBM Consulting. So we are the Microsoft practice within IBM Consulting. So that gives us the best of focus on our partnership of what we're able to do together, as well as the scale and breadth of what we can do in synergy with IBM Consulting at large. And so we're very blessed to have that partnership with IBM and be able to bring all of that greatness into the market. My team is focused, and 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗸 at large is focused on industry applications. About 10 years ago, we kind of saw this shift moving from traditional consulting models to what then we led into asset-led consulting models, which it manifested tons and tons of accelerators and things like that in the field. But really where the rubber meets the road is being able to meet you at your domain, right? So we went through a process of really aligning our business to industry outcomes, realizing that code generation wasn't always going to be the end-all be-all in the future. So we went out into the field and really hired a lot in the domain and have really built some world-class teams that represent the best of energy and financial services and state and local government, those types of things. So my team specifically focuses on what we call industrials. So that's our manufacturing, oil and gas, utilities practice. And the reason why we've coupled them that way is because there's a lot of similarities across work and asset management, field safety, reliability, logistics, things like that. And so we are very much partner together at that industrial level to make sure that we can bring the best of Microsoft capability to our clients and help them reimagine what those processes and workflows can be in the era of AI.
Yeah, and so talking about that relationship with Microsoft, what has the partnership with Microsoft meant for you all, and how does it enable success for you, but also for the customer?
Yeah, I think it's a couple things. I mean, at foundational level, I mean, Microsoft provides us an amazing platform to take to market, right? So the services, and even what we witnessed just this week with what I think is a pretty healthy consolidation of a lot of different challenges that were going on in the marketplace with all of the latest releases with their IQ platforms, as well as Agent 365 and our ability to just kind of orchestrate and understand how to use agents at scale. I mean, these are things that just when we flew here on the plane were challenging and now have become easier in just a moment's time. And so that'll continue to, I think, accelerate and perpetuate. And that's why it's great to have folks like you here learning about these types of assets. So first and foremost, platform and the services give us a great opportunity to go help our clients be better in envisioning what they can do as an organization. I think the second thing is the partnership and the way that we have aligned our businesses, right? So you guys are industry first, we're industry first, our industry advisor network, your industry advisor network, they're in lockstep. And we really have developed our business in a way where the Microsoft pillars become almost the leading thought in how we're going to develop our assets. So we think of this in a couple ways. One is the most important thing is the client and understanding the headwinds and the challenges that they're going to be facing and how we can solve a problem. The second thing is how does Microsoft release their product, their platform, and what are their priorities and how can we align to those? And I think we've really embraced that. And together we've really created things like that was shown on the screen that are special from a use case development standpoint that we can then go out at scale and really show off and really help change the dynamic of the industry.
Yeah, I want to get into that. I think a few years ago you'd go to a conference, especially if it was more of an energy and resources industry conference, and people would be talking about AI and the potential of AI. But we're finally able to move beyond the talk and actually see real results, and that's what's exciting. And so I'm curious, what are some of the use cases that you've seen lit up at customers that have really been successful, and what's enabling that success?
When we think about what things to invest in and what to build and what problems to solve, I think we always start with asking ourselves a pretty bold question, and this is on behalf of our clients, and that's when we think of the energy frontier firm, we think of it as what if 50% of our labor going forward is actually not human? What does that mean? Like how do we think about that today? How do we shape that for the short and medium term? And so in a world where we have human intelligence and artificial intelligence coexisting, and by the way, I don't think that's a long-term problem. I think in a year's time, that'll just be work, the way we showed up to work with the internet on day one and it was a phenomenon and now we don't talk about it. I mean, these things will become very commonplace and ubiquitous in our workforces. But for now, it's a major transition, right? And so some of the things that when we talk about 50% of that work being digital, we want to look at the value streams, the things that are most encompassing of the highest cycle times and different things that have the most handoffs, ways that we can insert digital labor into those cycle times to create value. Because what we're trying to do in this entire process is not necessarily replace any one particular thing or shave off any particular hour. What we're trying to do is propel the human imagination experience. And I think if we can really use digital labor as a foundation to augment the human intelligence aspect, we can be more creative, we could be more complete in our research, more complete in our scope, definement of what value looks like for our organization, the better off we'll be over the course of time. So to that end, using that logic and that bold thought, I mean, we have seen a number of use cases applied at scale, and sometimes a bit surprising. Some of the most, across the energy space, some of the folks that have embraced it the most have been the legal and regulatory teams. So our AI-powered regulatory rate case solution, as well as our site permitting solution, are two examples of, a lot of time and effort and individuals across front office, back office, SMEs that have to be involved in the creation of content, white papers, testimony, these types of things. So everything from asking the questions to get answers for research all the way down to the actual creation of testimonies and white papers and how those go into preparing witnesses for their job, all the way to editing and proofreading. I mean, we're looking at that entire value chain and seeing 30 to 40% of that effort being pulled into digital workflows. And that's a pretty profound savings when it comes to the scale at which these are being produced at. So when we think about things like that, we also understand that there's a work and asset management play out there that's huge. I mean, we just did a project with a large company down in the South focused on nuclear, and really the idea behind what we're trying to do with reliability is to predict certain events, right? So that's kind of the name of the game. And one of the things that was happening in nuclear space is there is a series of events that could lead to down power. Down power is a bad thing, right? So they are responsible for 20% of the energy mix for the South. And when that happens, SLAs and other important things are missed and regulatory fines are assessed. So we want to make sure that we're really understanding what these events are and when they're going to happen so that we could go through our preventative cycles to make sure that they didn't happen. The result was actually being able to detect almost 100% of those. It did come with some initial false positives, and we had to figure out what false positives were compared to real events. But ultimately, if you think about an event costing $1 million a day and lasting about a week, across all of their plants and infrastructure. I mean, this is real hard cost savings that's coming just by being able to be smarter with the data. And the last thing I'll say about that is the data is king, right? So at the underlying platform, we could throw an agent on whatever we want, but if the data and the ontology of the data doesn't give us the opportunity to really get to the answer and have the agent make the right move, we don't have much in terms of value definition there. So we do spend quite a bit of time piecing that together and making sure that the data quality is very high to pull this off.
Yeah, one more thing I wanted to ask you about was, you've obviously been working with a lot of companies. I'm sure they and you have learned some lessons along the way. Things are moving so fast. There's got to be some failures and lessons learned. So what are some of those lessons, and how do you think that'll affect what goes on over the next 8 to 12 months?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've come out of a couple of years of a lot of trials, right? A lot of experimentation. Maybe some of you have been a part of those. And I think we all come with different expectations. So I think the definition of value is something that really needs to be defined by an organization and needs to be sort of agreed upon from the top down. So as we think about the definition of value, we go through this process of adjudication because there are thousands of ideas inside of an organization of how AI can potentially help me or my team or my business unit. So when we go through the process of adjudication, the center of excellence and all of that, I mean, those are some best practices that really help us get to the point where we can start to ideate and do some real design thinking around what goals we have for our groups, and then how we think AI can help, what problems we think it can solve, and then being able to prioritize those in a way that we can go back and actually create meaningful backlog for the group. So that's some of the best practice. Some of the ways that we've not seen success, I think, has really been around looking at our traditional workflows and then just like adding. So it's like, rather than putting AI on the front end of the discussion and reimagining the workflow, it's really about adding AI or Copilot to an existing traditional workflow and then getting mediocre results and then kind of saying, yeah, this didn't work, and then moving on to something else. And so I think the strategy matters. I think the data matters. I think the process of aligning people is probably the most important in all of this. And sometimes it's the most forgotten piece because we often talk about the build of an agentic workflow or the orchestration of that workflow. And we forget that this is work, right? And it requires all of us to be in it together. So the last thing I'll say is the ones that are thinking most progressively around the next 10 to 18 months, since you asked me where I think things are going, I think the orchestration will be huge, right? How are we gonna manage digital intelligence in our organizations? 𝗦𝗽𝗲 IBM had put some thoughts out there with digital workforce IQ being one of our solutions that we deploy that helps not only deploy agents at scale, but ensure that you're operating within certain thresholds, that the things that those agents are doing are giving you the results that you're looking for, and it's able to be monitored and it's able to be visualized on a dashboard for all of you. And so I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to kind of bring this all together and say, what is the future of work gonna look like? And we understand it will be human and artificial intelligence, and really make sure that the orchestration of that is one that is successful as we move forward over the next 10 to 18 months.
Yeah, thanks. So I want to thank Mike, and we're going to bring him back out in a little bit for some Q&A as we move on. But thank you for being here. All right. So as we move to the next part where we're going to talk with S&P Global, I want to start with a video that showcases some of the work that they've been doing to get their data AI ready and enabled with Microsoft Copilot.
We're looking at and talking about events that are shaping pricing and trading all around the world, whether it's a geopolitical event, a storm, a disruption of some sort. We're looking at impacts on these commodities. Where are we headed? What does it mean for tomorrow?
S&P Global provides a vast amount of research and insights to the global energy and commodity market.
Data is the lifeblood of the businesses that we work with, how they make real-time decisions.
We need a way to make it easier for customers to consume and act on our data. We knew an AI agent could bridge the gap. We worked with Microsoft to build S&P Global Commodity Insights AI-ready data agent with Copilot Studio.
By bringing AI-ready data into Microsoft 365, we're meeting our customers where they're already working. It's so important that our data has high quality, it's credible, and not just for one time, but every time.
When customers ask a question, this response comes with links back to the source information from S&P Global. The Microsoft Graph Connector has helped with the entitlement framework, making sure that the proprietary data that they have access to is what is generating their response. Approximately 1.5 million objects are connected today.
This collaboration between S&P and Microsoft, embedding this information through Copilot, opens up the possibility of the future and really helps in the value that we can provide to our client base.
Our customers have given us feedback that not only does this improve their productivity, they trust the quality. They are able to make real-time decisions that ultimately impacts their business outcomes.
Please join me in welcoming S&P Global Energy's Chief Experience Officer and star of that video, Stephanie Comardelle. Hey. So I especially love that video because that's something that we worked closely together on, our two companies, and it was a really exciting rollout. And it's what's fantastic is to see it being adopted by so many companies. It also, for me, showcases how S&P Global is a frontier firm and becoming a frontier firm and moving in that direction, not just leveraging AI for your own use, but also for your customers. Talk to me a little bit about what that means, to you, becoming frontier, and how you see that in practice.
No, absolutely, and thank you again for having me here today. Rob and I work really closely together on many initiatives, and when I think about the concept of a frontier firm, I think about what you just released through the Work Trend Index. It really resonates to the work that we're doing. We really knew at the beginning that we needed not just to think about the data, but the accessibility. So we started moving so much towards not just thinking about how and when and where, but what does the future of work look like? and how that data becomes so critical path. And time is just becoming such an essential part of how our key stakeholders are leveraging and working with us. Real-time decisioning and how we are able to accelerate their ability to make strong decisions, confident decisions, credible decisions, is imperative in the space that we're in. The markets are changing rapidly. The ability for how and when they can, their supply chains are shifting, their pricing is shifting. So we knew as a frontier firm, we needed to not just think about how do we make our AI ready data available, but we needed it to be accessible where they're already working. And we knew that it needed to be through a technology and a capability, whether it was Azure or Fabric or whatever that looks like, and working and partnering with those companies, that it was going to be confident and they could have trust in what they were viewing and what they were looking at. It really moves us from them researching and looking for data to conversing with it and interacting with the data, which is a massive step forward that we're really engaged in working towards.
Yeah, and as a former user of your data sets in my previous life in the energy business, I can't even imagine how much easier it is and how much faster you can access the information you want. It's fantastic. I want to ask you a similar question to what I asked Mike about partnership. Our partnership is relatively new and growing, and maybe you could talk a little bit about how that partnership began between S&P Global and Microsoft, and how you think it's going, and what's the latest?
No, absolutely. So our partnership began, again, just going back to keeping our customers at the core of how we think about what they need, how we problem solve for them. We knew that our data is essential to them, and we knew that we needed to make it AI ready, but we also knew that we needed to make it friction-free in how they accessed it. And partnership with Microsoft, who has the tech leadership, that has the capabilities, and that was already looking and researching and ahead in this space, it was a natural gravitation for how do we come together. We have shared goals in how and the experiences that we want to provide to our customers. How do we leverage that? How do we bring the expertise in the industry and our data that we have into the space and combine that in a meaningful way for our user bases and our shared customers to then have that accessibility right at their fingertips, where they're already working, not having to switch systems, again, getting them the better time to value in how they work with both of us, and enabling them to move faster in a very fast-moving market space.
Yeah, and this is where the impact really happens. Everybody always says how you have the coolest title, Chief Experience Officer, and so you must get to see a lot of what your customers are doing and interact with the customers a lot. And what do you see in terms of the transformations that you're seeing? What's differentiating certain customers in terms of the transformation out there?
I think that the impact is palpable. We are seeing, for example, we have one large energy customer that the way by which they're harnessing the power of data and Copilot and AI in general in how they do model and scenario analysis. So for example, when you think about decarbonization models, when you think about energy transition models, these used to be arduous, time-consuming, weeks, days of pulling data together, aggregating it, analyzing it, and then, potentially having to start over if you want to change the parameters or you want to do something different. Even if they had automation behind it, it still was just a drudge. Like, people had to spend excessive amounts of time. Now, bringing AI into that mix and having the data easily accessible through AI, and now they're conversing with it versus researching it, this became a game changer for them, because in seconds they can do what used to take hours, and it gives them so much more opportunity to then think about what are the alternative scenarios, what do we want to compare. And then even in financial services, if you think about some of the larger investment banks, or in the, just modeling parts of how those portfolio companies are working in private equity, understanding how things are changing in their investments is pretty essential. So the ability to then take all of that data and be able to model out and analyze in seconds price sensitivities, price changes, any supply chain disruption or supply chain shipping changes, those things and how that impacts their investments is real-time value to them that they just didn't have readily available before. And it enables them to adjust, to adopt new strategies, and think about things in ways that they hadn't thought about.
Yeah, and I think like many of you that are listening, S&P Global is a company that has deep domain expertise, and when it's bringing those deep domain experts together with AI, that's so powerful. And you all talk about how that enables insights to be accessible to everyone, anywhere, and I love that. I think that's just fantastic. I want to talk about the future. So going forward, what are you excited about?
So there's plenty of things that excite me. As everyone knows, the space of AI and Agentics is moving so fast. It's hard to keep a pulse on it. But I do know the one thing that really excites me is continuing our partnership with Microsoft and how we work together. I think that the richer your partnerships and how you engage with others that are trying to accomplish the same outcomes just creates this acceleration and momentum that pulls everyone forward. You know the old saying, ships rise with the tide. I do believe that this is one of those moments that the more we are working together towards what that future place looks like, and Microsoft being a key partner of that, and just seeing some of the advancements that you're making. So, when I think about the future, the things that keep me up at night, I see Microsoft already taking steps towards. One example of that is Agent 365. It was probably my favorite moment from the keynotes this week was the realization, because it's top of mind for us, is how you govern, how do you maintain, how do you, secure all of the agents, and seeing that Microsoft was already there. It's just super exciting because, again, being able to leverage the capabilities, but then also being able to secure it and protect your business and protect your customers is just critically important.
Yeah, thinking about the future in the energy business, one of the best places to see what's coming in the future is the CERAWeek conference, which is one of the most important energy conferences in the world. And if you didn't know this, S&P Global puts on that conference. So even though it's not the topic for today, I thought, well, we've got Stephanie here. Let's get a little bit of the inside take. CERAWeek's coming up in March. Is there anything new and different, exciting that's coming for CERAWeek for folks?
Oh my gosh. So for those of you that don't know, CERAWeek, as Rob said, it's just an amazing experience. It brings together some of the most prominent thought leaders in the industry around energy, sustainability, and even moving into other areas such as future energies, as well as financials. And for us, it's an exciting time. And Rob knows this, I am heavily engaged with the CERAWeek team planning this year. We are introducing a new space called The Bridge. And this is really where The Bridge is intended to bring together the innovation, all of the nexus of what's new and exciting and the startup pieces that we're seeing in the energy space, technology, and how that comes together with the thought leadership and what has been traditional in the energy space as well. So how do you pull all that together? What does it look like to move forward? And we're just super excited to see this come to life. And it is, again, it'll be brand new. And it brings in the next generation of our future energy leaders.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the great things about the conferences. You guys evolve it each year and bring new things. And it's grown into this amazing event. Any last thoughts that you want to share?
I think my last thought is really, I know that there's so much conversation around what happens to the industry experts, the human side of what we do around our analysis, our analytical thinking, our scenario planning, all of those pieces. And for me, this is always top of mind because I'm so focused on the experience of our customers, our internal teams. And I think for me, the one piece that I would just leave with is, AI and the human side of it, to me, there's a distinct distinction in how those things come together. AI as of yet, I can't speak to the future, but as of right now, AI does not have the cognitive reasoning that the human expertise brings. So while the analytics of AI is amazing, and increasing that time and availability for our analysts and the human side of the work to focus on those other things, the analytics, AI is absolutely speeding that up. It's enabling that shorter time frame to real-time decisions, to impactful foresight into what's coming for people's businesses. But it does not replace the context that the human side brings. So having the compute power and the ability to quickly analyze and look at alternative scenarios for planning and for strategy and risk mitigation, combined with the context and the industry experts, bringing that together in how those decisions happen is still critical, and that will continue, I think, for some time.
Yeah, I love it. And I love that we're having these conversations with companies that weren't traditionally tech companies or AI companies, and all of us are now becoming experts in this space and having these amazing discussions. So thank you. And I'm going to bring Mike back out on the stage, and we'll take a few minutes for Q&A from the audience. If you're interested in asking a question, I ask you to please come up to the microphone so that the folks that are online can hear the question, and we're happy to answer any questions you might have. Anyone? If not, I might start. I just want to hear from you guys about your Ignite experience, and in particular, was there something you took away from Ignite that was especially impactful for you? I'll start with you, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite a week, right? I mean, you guys are obviously leading in this AI space, so it's tough to absorb it all. But I think the one thing I did take away is what I said earlier. I think the consolidation of some of these challenges into platform opportunities that you guys have created with the IQs and the Agent 365. I mean, it's just phenomenal to see with all of the work that we have ahead of us. And that's really we're at a watershed moment now with AI at the core of electrification of everything, at the core of the nearshoring opportunity, at the core of all these things that we're really facing to leverage tools like this to double our productivity as a workforce. And that's going to be critical to think about as we move forward. And so when we think about not just the one agent, but the 10,000 agents that we're going to have, the ability to see in real time how they're functioning and what that means for my team, my group, my job, my decisions, coming to life with some of these platform changes has just been phenomenal to watch. So I think the technology play and also watching a little bit of the mind shift. I think people like those in this room are really starting to see the potential of where this can all go when you bring industry and these types of platforms together to really kind of change the way we think about work going forward.
No, absolutely, and I can add to that. So I completely agree with what Mike just shared. And additionally, what I can say is this is my first Microsoft Ignite. So for me, it's been a fantastic week, but a great week of learning. The experience itself has been fantastic. I would say, going back to my comment earlier, just seeing what's coming to aid us in how we continue to accelerate, get momentum, but do it in a secure and scalable way, and how that impacts not just our customers, but our own internal workforces, and enabling them to have more time to spend on the higher threshold of value for our customers. That to me is just amazing. And then also just seeing what everyone's doing. It's moving so fast, and being able to go into the hub and talk to other partners, and again, going back to learning from each other in these moments, I just think it's incredible to see all of the leadership and thought-provoking, how we're doing things in a tech-forward way, but we're bringing the humans with us. I love it. I mean, it's been an incredible week to really understand that.
Yeah, it really has, and it was my first Ignite as well, and I loved it. And one of the things that stood out for me, and maybe you all have all heard this a number of times, but for me, I heard it a couple times during the conference, but for me it was new, was just a way of answering the question that we all get all the time about AI and is it going to take away jobs, and the answer was AI is not going to take away your jobs, but people who know how to use AI are going to take away your job. And I thought that was really well said and so true. And it just shows that all of us need to be constantly learning and staying on top of how to use AI. Audience question. And if you wouldn't mind saying who you are and where you work.
My name is Gaurang. Rob, you and I have worked together in the past on OSDU stuff.
Yes.
I work at HashiCorp, now an IBM company. So first of all, CERAWeek, I've been once to CERAWeek, and I love it. It's so incredible, just how you have evolved over the last 5-6 years, and how you continue to do that. That's amazing. My question is different. So on OSDU, I'm just curious. I'd never heard you mention OSDU here. With the whole shift towards Copilot and AI, I'm wondering, what does 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗸𝗫 and S&P, how do they play in this, and how's the partnership evolving with that in the context of OSDU?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you two are as familiar with OSDU, but your companies are. But I'm happy to talk about it, and if you want to chime in, go ahead. But so we have a great partner ecosystem. OSDU is an open platform, standards practice for subsurface data in the oil and gas business, and it's a consortium of companies that work together. And Microsoft has its own first-party platform called Azure Data Manager for Energy that is OSDU compliant. And so yes, we have a lot of partners that are working in that space. With S&P Global, we've been partnering closely to bring their data to the customers through our OSDU platform, and that's coming soon. It's not available yet, but we're working really hard on that, so the data will be integrated in, and so many of our customers are using that data for the subsurface. So this is going to be really exciting. We're working closely with her engineering teams and making that happen. And with 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗸𝗀𝗁, I'm not sure if there's any active work on OSDU. I don't know if you know, but yeah.
There is, but I think the larger question that you asked is actually a great question, which is, again, that partnership, right? So the platforms that they provide, I mean, data is ubiquitous. It's everywhere. It's how we harness it and optimize it and deliver it, right, for these types of decision making. So what subsurface data can provide in not only oil and gas, but also our mining and resources business is also a big area for that. How we surface that and get it to the maximum point of impact is how we're going to solve these problems going forward. And we all know that the problem is pretty profound, right? The energy needs, the demand that is ahead of us, the 2030, grow by 35% demand, 3.5% a year. These are real numbers, and we have real challenges because we have only so many finite resources, right? And we have to optimize those and take care of those. And we also have to be able to deploy our resources and assets in ways that are efficient and productive to help us meet those demands over time. So your example of that data source, amongst many, many others, is what these partnerships are really built for between S&P Global and Microsoft and 𝗦𝗽𝗲𝗸𝗀𝗁 and IBM at the greater scale. That's the power of that. So happy to talk more about some of the specific use cases, but I think you demonstrated the exact partnership point that we're trying to get across here.
Well, yeah, I'll go ahead and share a little bit of info for you on things that you can do to take action. So if you're interested in learning more about Microsoft's energy and resources practice and the work that we're doing, we have a website that's shown on this slide. We also have a blog that has new content coming out, and that would be worth seeing. There's also ways for you to look at information on how to create demand as a partner of Microsoft, how to grow your business as a partner from Microsoft. And then if I was to give you 3 things that I think are important as a partner that you need to know about. First, the Microsoft AI Cloud Partner Program. That's a program for you to be getting involved in, and if you're not already involved, you can scan the QR code. The ISV Success Program. So for all of you ISVs out there, this is a program that if you're not already a part of, you should be. And then of course, Marketplace. We always talk about Marketplace, and this is the way for you to sell your applications and sell them alongside Microsoft. And so more information here. working through this and becoming a Microsoft partner, you know, the hope is that next year you're up here on the stage with me and we're talking about all the great work that you've been doing. And so really appreciate you being here. Hope you had a great conference, and thank you to my guests for being here with me. I really appreciate it. Thanks.